Well, my brother talked me into doing another thing. I went to Transworld's Halloween and Attraction show in St. Louis, Missouri. And boy, can these people make some cool stuff. So today, we're going to be talking about all things spooky, frightening, and actually pretty incredible. If you don't know what this is, Transworld's Halloween Attraction Show is the largest haunt show in the country and probably the world. Yowza. Right? Dude! There are makers and vendors from all corners of the country, and they make everything from masks to monsters to zombies to giant creatures. They sell LED lights, they sell fog machines. Whoa, look at this guy. You name it, if it applies to a haunted house, it's going to be at this show. I plan to go through several different aspects of the show, but be sure to stick around to the very end of the video because that's where I'm going to reveal my favorite booths, my favorite vendors from the show. And believe me, you want to see what these guys can do. This is not a sponsored video, but be sure to subscribe to the channel as I have some more spooky stuff coming this year, and be sure to check out my brother's social media pages at The Zombie Hollow. Check him out on Instagram and Facebook. My brother has done a yard haunt for years and has raised a ton of money in free will donations for wounded veterans charities. This year, he is going to level up and do a paid commercial yard haunt on his property that's outside of Des Moines, Iowa. He's the one that drug me along on this adventure, so be sure to head over to Facebook and Instagram and give the Zombie Hollow a follow. Zombie Hollow a follow. Yeah, sure. Let's talk a little bit about gore. Full disclosure, I'm not much of a fan of the gory stuff. I mean, I'm fine. It doesn't make me sick or throw up or anything. It's just not really my thing when it crosses a line. And there's some stuff at this place that not only walked up to that line, but stepped all the way over it. So if you're into that stuff, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to see that much of it here, mainly because I don't want to get this video flagged by YouTube or something. Trust me, there's some crazy stuff. If you want to see that stuff, you gotta go to this show. All the way at one end of the show floor, they had this big room section off called the Dark Zone. And I don't mean it was just some room like a living room. No, they had a giant curtain that went floor to ceiling of the entire showroom, which is like 50 feet. And this room, once you walked inside, was totally dark, but they had it all lit up so you could see some of the cool, scary effects, the same way that you would see them walking through an actual haunted house. And it was awesome. What was missing from the show? I would say I was kind of surprised at the lack of digital vendors that were there. My brother has always done some ghost effects that you kind of take a digital screen and angle some glass panes to make it look like ghosts are floating in the air, that you hook up to speakers and make them make scary sounds. People have always gone nuts over those things at his yard haunt, so I was really surprised that there weren't more digital effects at this. We did find one vendor that had some really cool framed goblins that would talk back and forth, and then of course some pumpkin heads that were all lit up by a projector that would banter, and some really creepy dolls. But really, that was about it. So this event does include a lot of after hours events for people that have a ticket, but they find more ways of getting your money because each one of these after hours events of course comes with a price tag. We missed the Wednesday night party because we didn't arrive in St. Louis until Thursday, but we did go to the City Museum private party on Thursday night from 8 to midnight, and that was totally worth the money. If you guys have never been to the City Museum in St. Louis, you should just go. It's freaking amazing. I usually just describe it as like an adult playground because there's giant slides that go like 10 stories down. There's mosaic tile over everything, architecture from the late 1800s that they've brought into this building and put them in random spots. And just the artwork in this place is just crazy. As for the other after hours events, there was a Let It Glow party on Friday night. That was completely lame.
Just left the Let It Glow party.
It's Christmassy.
That was terrible. That was awful.
I would recommend just hanging out in the Marriott hotel lobby if you want to get to know people and hang out, and honestly, that was nuts. I can't even describe it other than 3 levels of people hammering drinks until 3 in the morning. On the final night, there was a zombie costume party, which we didn't dress up for, but next year, probably better because a lot of people were in some pretty cool costumes for this thing, including 8-foot tall giant zombie thing. The attraction show was not just a haunted attraction show, there was also a Christmas section. You're probably not watching this video to hear about the Christmas section, so I won't talk about it that much, other than to say, I don't really know who this thing was for. Everything on display here was nothing you could fit in your yard or store in your basement. It's pretty much like the Jolly Holiday Lights type thing that you drive through where you see the giant setups. That's all this was. Giant Christmas trees and giant sleighs covered with tinsel and lights. Oh, and if you want a giant hot chocolate mug that you can serve actual drinks from that's covered in tinsel and lights, that'll set you back about 35 grand. Yikes. Let's talk a little bit about the seminars that go on at the show. So you don't only have to walk around the trade floor all day, every day. There's some seminars that are put on that are about an hour long that are put on by the different vendors there at the show. If you ever check the website before the show, you might have had your eyeballs pop out at some of the price tags on these, because it's like $55 just to go to an hour-long seminar. My brother paid for a few of these because he really wanted to learn some stuff to get his haunt going. I, on the other hand, was totally content just by going to the free seminars, and they pretty much had those running on every time slot throughout the day, every day that we were there. I went to one seminar that was put on by the owner of Rise of the Jack-O-Lanterns, and it was pretty awesome. I never thought of even trying to do a long trail completely covered by jack-o'-lanterns that were carved, but that's what this guy does. He has quite the operation, and honestly, the things that they carve and the scale of these trails that they put together, 1 to 5,000 pumpkins for one 3/4 mile hike. Crazy. I also attended the session put on by Little Spider Creations, and these guys are awesome. If you haven't, you should check out their website, check out their Instagram. The work they do to take foam and make giant foam sculptures is just amazing. They use electric chainsaws and horse combs and Dremel tools to make these crazy sculptures. Anything from dragons to Star Wars vehicles to giant cheeseburgers, like they can make anything and they make it huge. They gave a ton of information about their process, and I can see myself making a foam sculpture in the very near future. So I mentioned before my brother went to a few of the paid seminars, and one of those he attended was put on by the folks over at Haunted Overload. If you haven't heard of these guys or checked them out, do it. They are awesome. Links will be down in the description. They put on a haunted trail in New Hampshire, and it is nothing short of spectacular. They have so many giant sculptures and structures, and they talk through their process for making things out of wood, basically rounding up all the timber that they have on their property and using it to make houses and make giant gargoyles and giant pumpkin heads. Crazy, crazy stuff. We actually got a chance to talk to Eric, Wallace, Nikki, and Morgan, and to get to hang out with them a bit at the Undead party on Saturday night. They are really great people, and they gave my brother a ton of advice as he tries to transfer from a home haunt to a commercial haunt later this year. All right, so let's talk about my favorite vendors. Let's talk best masks first, and this was really a tie for me. Immortal masks are stunning. These guys actually had 2 different vendor spots right across from each other because of the sheer volume of masks that they had on hand. And I really don't even have a good way to describe these things other than to just say, take a look. I also have to give a shout out to Madness FX. These guys have a ton of great masks as well, and my brother actually ended up buying a Pennywise mask from them. These silicone masks look so cool, and when you put them on, it looks like your normal skin, like you have a painted face. Like the way that they move and everything, it's so cool. But the folks there at Madness FX were super awesome. They talked to us a lot about their process and gave us tips if we wanted to start making masks of our own. The guys over at VFX Props had the best small prop in my opinion, the mirror box. I try to explain this thing, but you just gotta see it for yourself. Wild, right? That thing has definitely been added to our project list for this year. This place was full of monsters and gore, but only Stilt Beast Studios had a giant 8-foot tall moss creature thing walking around on all fours through the show floor. And these guys are probably going to be pretty busy this year because they were like the only place I saw that had a clicker mask from The Last of Us. They also had some really creepy mushroom looking things that are probably going to be popular as that show is, you know, kind of like the biggest thing for all of us right now. I got to talk one more time about Rise of the Jack-o'-lanterns. So this was the one I mentioned previously that I went to the session on, but these guys do amazing stuff. These carvings that they put in the pumpkins are so lifelike and so realistic. Again, see for yourself. They had a kind of tent set up that you could walk inside where it was totally dark, so you could really get the full effect to see what these pumpkins would look like at night. These things are artistically brilliant. I gotta say, I gotta find the list of the haunted trails that they support because I gotta make my way to one of those this year. Really cool stuff. Let's talk crazy animatronics. So that dark room I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Scare Factory was one vendor in there that had the wildest display that I've ever seen. The sheer size and range of motion that the creatures that these guys make have is just crazy. These were a bit out of my budget, but they certainly gave us something to aspire towards as a creator. Beastcraft Animatronics was another vendor that had some really wild animatronics and some really cool skeletons and things that had some wild range of motion that just kind of made them move in a way that looked really spooky. For a minute there, I really thought my brother was going to pull the trigger and buy one of these things. The skeleton zombies were awesome, but I really like the pop-up pumpkin guys. And probably the best of the animatronics, and really just overall creature creation, the guys over at Distortions Unlimited. They had the wildest creatures that sometimes would shake so violently you'd think the thing's head was about to go flying off. Oh, and the dragon heads that they had mounted on the wall, that is certainly a project in my future. Okay, the guys over at 13th Floor Entertainment were really close to my favorite because they didn't just bring creatures to the haunted show, they brought an entire haunted house. They set up a 2-story haunted house complete with fading brick, rotten wood, decrepit railings, moss-covered trees, a foyer you could walk into, cobwebs, you name it, like whatever you think should belong in a haunted house, this thing had it, and it was right there in the middle of the show floor. And my number one vendor at the show, Little Spider Creations. This display was stunning. A giant 2-story castle tower that not only could you walk through and get this dungeony cave-like experience, but also a stone stairway that you could walk around and up the tower to get actually in the top of the tower, in the giant pumpkin head, and you could turn and get a bird's eye view of the show floor all the way around. It's just unreal to me that they put this thing together in like 2 days there on the set. I mean, obviously there's some pre-work, but still, this thing was so cool. I really left the show feeling inspired from these guys, and not only with what they do with Halloween stuff, But they had a flyer where they showed some bedroom makeovers that they've done in the past, and that is definitely coming up in my future. So those were my favorites, but one more thing I have to say is the community aspect of this show was just awesome. Every vendor that we talked to wasn't there just trying to sell their wares. They would go out of their way to talk about their process, tell you how they make things. You would talk about a project and they would like help you with tips on how to do it. Everybody at this show was just so friendly and just went out of their way to be friendly to people and share tips and just kind of know that we're all creators and kind of in this together. It was just a really cool community experience, and I am super glad that I went this year. This is a truly great show, and if you're into Halloween at all, you just have to do this. Put it on your bucket list, go to St. Louis and make it happen. Did I miss any? If I did, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, be sure to give the channel a subscribe. We've definitely got some haunt projects coming up this year that I think you'll enjoy. Or, you know, check out some of the other stuff that we do with the laser and Marvel and carving and Star Wars, you know, geeky stuff. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.